Hello everybody, Dokkan Assets here. Today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite types of assets from Dokkan Battle, story assets. That's right, the assets in story events and in the quest mode and in Dokkan events that give us the little in-between sections of our favorite Dragon Ball characters chatting it up and giving us a little bit of story to each of these different events. The reason why I wanted to talk about story assets today was actually because of something specifically related to them regarding the newest update that we got on JP Dokkan. We actually did get a new quest mode update with a couple of new stages, and in this particular update, we got a new story asset for the boy Tien. Now, besides the fact that my man is kind of built like Kylo Ren, I thought that this was a bit of an interesting asset to add. Of course, the origin of this particular asset being Prime Battle Tien in the beginning of his super attack. Something that is definitely important to keep in mind for later. When playing through these new quest mode stages, I noticed that something was a little bit strange. Not only the fact that they used the new Tien asset there just kind of out of the blue. It's sort of strange that they decided to give him something. I suppose it's because he was such a prominent part of this new saga of the quest stages, but it was kind of funny seeing him next to these really old assets, right? Obviously, these are N characters like Yamcha over here, and it was so weird seeing this clearly higher quality story asset next to these very old card arts here, right? It's just a sort of a little bit jarring, if I do say so myself. I know for some people it might not be as bad because you're not really thinking about the relation that the particular render has to the card. But if you've been playing Dokkan for a while, and funny enough, when I've watched a couple of other people do story events, I see people comment on this like, oh, it's kind of weird that there's this brand new story asset right there next to the boy N Yamcha. We're not even going to talk about the fact that this very old Trunks asset is here. And I know for a fact too that obviously that the reason why they're using him is because this is the quest mode Trunks specifically, right? Obviously this is the Trunks render that they've been using since the very beginning of the quest mode. So of course whenever Trunks appears in the story, they're going to use him. But he does kind of feel a little bit out of place. Like, not only does Tien feel really out of place compared to these, you know, very old card arts, Trunks certainly feels really out of place compared to the other ones too. And not to mention, right, talking about these assets feeling kind of out of place, obviously in other stages they do stuff similar to this too, where they actually use renders from pieces of different super attacks or other animations in the game, or newer card art with some older art in the game, kind of making it feel a little bit jarring. Extremely in some certain cases where it's like, oh buddy, this looks like two different screenshots from two different games, if I'm being honest with you. So the question that I kind of wanted to propose today with all of this is, why does Dokkan decide to only update story assets sometimes? Now, obviously when we're talking about this, we're more so referring to actual story events, Dragon Ball story, and the quest mode, rather than the Dokkan events, because of course when it comes to a Dokkan event, most of the time for the story sections of the event, they're just using the card art from the actual character that the event is associated with anyway. But when it comes to the actual characters, the answer is seemingly pretty simple. Whenever a character has new animations or a new card art that has been released since the last time they were added into an event like this, it's easy for the game to simply take out different sections of their animations, either rebuild the pieces of the asset, or if it's already one piece, just kind of reuse that for some different story assets, right? A lot of different events in the game actually do this, reusing some different assets from different animations to use it for the actual story event. But the question still remains, why don't they update all of the assets for this? That's the part that's kind of the strangest to me, because if we go back to the quest mode again, the newest stages of course feature the gang, right? And ironically enough, talking about how Tien had his updated assets, of course being the Prime Battle Tien, why would they not use updated stuff for Yamcha? right? Of course, we see the Yamcha here this entire time, right? And he's basically the only representation for Yamcha until seemingly the literal last thing that Yamcha says in the event where they actually use his Dokkan Fest card art. It's just really weird to me that they don't decide to use some new stuff from him. Like, even if the purpose of not using the new Yamcha for the entirety of this conversation that they're having is just because they want to use specific assets with the characters looking a certain way, having a certain expression on their face to kind of better show off how the characters are actually feeling, because of course, you know, the only thing that you're getting to tell the story is literally just a PNG. So obviously having an appropriate expression for a character helps a lot more to kind of convey what's going on in the story. But it's still a little bit strange to me because they do this for Tien, but Yamcha not only has all this other card art to take from, but of course, like we discussed, all of these different SA assets that they could take from Yamcha. He has so many different things in all these animations that I feel like they could make the story mode a lot more animated. Not literally, I suppose, but obviously using all these different expressions that Yamcha now has at his disposal, right? It's just very strange to me why they wouldn't do this. And you would think that it would make quest mode a little bit more enticing to look at. I mean, for me personally, I always enjoy looking at the new story assets and how they end up actually being used in the story, but I feel like it would just make it more engaging for the casual player to have something a lot more interesting to look at rather than just the same Yamcha PNG over and over and over. The one thing I will say about the way that they do it, at least with this current story event stage, is the fact that definitely having the one different PNG of the Dokkan Fest Yamcha at the very end of the part where they're having the conversation definitely makes it feel like a little bit more impactful. It definitely packs a little bit more of a punch because you're like, oh, all right, you know, we're about to fight. We're getting ready for the battle to begin. And I know that's such a simple thing, you know, kind of portraying something that I'm explaining as something a lot more grand, right? Literally just one difference of a PNG, you know, changing how you kind of view a situation, you know, because they could have just used the same Yamcha PNG that they've been using throughout the entire time. But no, they decide to use the new one. And I don't know, in my opinion, I just feel like it kind of makes it a lot more impactful right there at the very end, where you would kind of want to pack the punch in that little part of the story. I completely understand, of course, why they would want to reuse some assets from previous things that were in Dokkan. I mean, obviously, it's just a great way to save time and money for the dev team, already using something that they have at their disposal that's easy to implement into the game. So in that regard, I understand why they only update these story events sometimes, but it's still just kind of weird to me that this one specific part will get this brand new Tien story asset that seemingly is just from the very beginning of it, and they only use that for Tien, right? And no other characters get an update besides that. It's just very curious to me. The only thing that I can honestly kind of conjure up as to why they picked this was just because it is kind of a similar pose as to what the other characters are hitting in the scene. Obviously just basically standing straight up and down, right, at attention, a very neutral pose, right? And that's of course kind of what this Tien asset also has, you know, for his particular pose. He's literally just standing there. So maybe it's just because they saw the opportunity to update it and they took it. Like I said, I really enjoyed talking about little asset stuff like this, and I understand that definitely not everybody is going to be interested in it, but of course, you know, me posting the assets for every day to download, this is kind of my forte. So even if there isn't really a particular answer to the question at hand, I always think just having a discussion about it and kind of just having a chat about it is interesting to me, at least. So I hope you guys definitely enjoyed. Let me know what you think about everything in the comment section below, and let me know if you enjoyed this video and also of course this style of video. We've been trying to do a couple of videos in this style and seeing if you guys enjoy it, and I know I've definitely been enjoying making these topics so far, so definitely let me know what you feel about this sort of style of video in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will catch you in the next one. Dokkan Assets out. Peace.